Hello and welcome to another edition of Power of the Pen. I am LaWanna Bradford, and for those of you that have been following us for the past 6 years on E360 TV, you know I love all things books. I love bringing authors to the table, get their perspectives, help shift perhaps even your perspective when it comes to life, business, whatever topics on the table. And today I have a special guest. Jason Dennen will be talking about his book, and I'm going to let him say the title because it's pretty powerful. But his book really goes through his journey, a journey of discovery and recovery. And we've all been there where we kind of hit that wall at times. But this one is a pretty terrifying story that he's going to unpackage for us, where Jason is a Christian, a speaker, an author, an adventurer, explorer, one of those who loves extreme sports. He's a triathlete, and he took a third jump, and that third jump did not fare well for him, to the point that doctors didn't expect him to live. In fact, he became a medical phenomenon. How did he even survive this? And so we will get back in just a moment to introduce you to Jason Dennen and his amazing book about 8 days till sunrise. How's it going, Jason?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Here's your book, 8 Days Till Sunrise, and I'll let you read the rest of this for us.
Sure. 8 Days Till Sunrise, a true story of survival, rebirth, and discovering my purpose in life.
You know, I sat in on that title for a moment, and one of the things that we hear so many people talk about now, Jason, is I'm trying to find my purpose. I'm discovering, uncovering, trying to figure out which way I should go. What did God intend for me? People are praying the prayer of Jabez, but they're finding themselves stuck, and they're stuck in the rut of routine. Maybe even fear has caused them to be paralyzed, that they hear a calling, they hear a beacon, if you will, internally, and they don't heed it. And then sometimes there's a wake-up call. And I'm not saying this situation that happened to you was a wake-up call, but maybe it was. So can you tell us a little bit about when you moved to Colorado, you enjoyed skydiving. And in your book, you said, had you known before you took that third dive that your life would have changed in the way it did, the tragedy of the moment, that you weren't certain if you would have taken the dive. And then we'll get into a part of your book where then you say that that accident was probably the best thing that happened to you. So can you walk us through what happened? I mean, obviously that wasn't your first time skydiving.
Yeah, that was my 327th jump, was the big jump that we'll talk about. So I skydived quite a bit at that time, pretty much every weekend. And the first two jumps of the day went without any problems, as normal. And I jumped out the third time of the day, and I was coming in for a landing on a field I landed on hundreds of times before. When I got to about 150 feet off the ground, a huge gust of wind hit me from behind, picked me up, and made me overshoot the landing area. And I hit a fence, broke through that, and right behind it was an airplane hangar. And I hit that going about 30 miles an hour. So came to an abrupt stop, let's say.
Yeah, that's, I can't even imagine that, as you said, going 30 miles an hour. And then when you think about just the rate of force and impact, when that happened, was it, and I just want to do this for the audience, was it like you hit the hangar and then immediately you were unconscious, or did it take a moment for your body to realize I'm in a state of shock, and then you woke up in the hospital.
Right. So when I hit the fence first, which is 10 feet in front of the airplane hangar, I remember that completely. It was a 3 wire bands, like a cattle fence. So it comes tight, breaks, and then it's almost immediate because I didn't get slowed down at all when I hit the building. So pretty much I hit the building. I remember myself saying, I'm okay. I guess I was saying it to myself because I couldn't have been saying it to anyone else. And then I blacked out. The first thing that I said, now I didn't know I said this. I had to be told months later what I said. I was laying on the ground and people were over to me within seconds because where they packed the parachutes was only about, let's say a couple 100 feet away. So they saw me hit the building, heard the big bang, and they're trying to figure out if I'm okay or not. And they start talking to me. And the first thing I said is, don't call anyone. I'll be okay. Just give me a minute. And I had no recollection that I said that because I was completely blacked out. But the only thought I have is I went into fight or flight mode, and my body
Mm-hmm.
just took over. It's like, it's almost like when you fall down on ice, right? And if you stand up right away, you're like, oh, nothing's wrong. And I think that's what
Right.
my mind was trying to do. Although I wasn't going to get up for a really long time, but I was fighting for my life right away because the major injury when I hit that building, I hit it on the left side, and 10 of my 12 ribs broke, impacted my heart with such force. My heart broke out of the sac it sits in, called the pericardial sac, and ended up on the right side of my chest and all twisted up. And when I made it to the hospital, so they flew me flight for life helicopter 50 miles to the nearest level 1 trauma center, which takes care of the worst accident victims. Doctors would later tell my family, like, we've never done this surgery on anyone before, because when people's heart moves from one side of to the other, something disconnects and they die instantly. People die at the accident scene. They never make it into the hospital for them to even try and save them. So they couldn't figure out how I made it even to the hospital for them to do the surgery. And it was the first time they had ever done it. But besides that, 20 other broken bones, 3 other organs also had to be fixed on top of the heart. And they intubated me into a coma for 8 days to protect me from moving or disturbing anything they fixed at the time. So it was pretty traumatic for sure.
Yeah. I don't even know if there's really a word that describes that. I mean, like you said, internally, your organs shifted, twisted, and you were a medical case that doctors were really doing this for the first time and did so successfully. Now, my question to you was, because you are a man of faith, were you a Christian prior to the accident?
Yes. Yeah. I grew up in the church. So I was no stranger to being a man of faith. I would say right before the accident, I was working a ton of hours, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and at that time I wasn't actively going to church. Doesn't mean I wasn't praying every day, because I was praying every day. So it's not like I had lost my faith or anything like that. But a few weeks before the accident, I was kind of really feeling lost, just because I had lost purpose in life, working so many hours. You don't realize all these little decisions you make in your life lead you away from God, little by little. It's not like you're making a purposeful decision to say, well, I'm abandoning what I think is most valuable in life. But the reality is, little by little, you chip away at that. And one day you wake up and say, how am I so far away from the things that are so important to me? And so a few weeks before the accident, I was praying, and I always prayed for strength every day, because I was working so many hours. I was just, my health was going downhill, and I didn't know how I was going to get through the next day. But I wasn't really being honest, because the honest was that I was lost. And I said, Lord, I'm lost. I've done it my way for too long. If you lead me, I'll follow. Now, I didn't realize how powerful that prayer was going to be, because 3 weeks later is when I crashed into the side of that building. But it was the greatest gift ever given to me, for sure. I might have been still in that place of overwhelmed and lost for years. You don't know. And this kind of put a stop to how I was living. And I had to lay in bed and not move for 3 months with all my injuries. And all you have to do when all your distractions are taken away are think about the things that you were missing in life before the accident, and how you're going to correct this. And luckily, I got a second chance. And what do you do with this gift that's given to you, beyond yourself? Not just a gift for me, but what can I do with this gift to help other people through their greatest challenges? And I'm not sure I would have understood their greatest challenges without going through the toughest thing I ever went through first. So I was guided by scripture all along, even when I was in the coma and I couldn't possibly be thinking straight. And it was just like going through trials, here to test our faith and develop our perseverance. We won't be tempted beyond what we can bear. And it's like that gave me the calm in a place because you're in a coma, you don't know you're in a coma. You're just in some deep, dark place, or at least that's what it was for me. And I was visited by hundreds and hundreds of nightmares where people were with me, unwilling to help me and leaving me for dead. And I had to decide whether I wanted to live or not. And all along that time, when I wasn't sure what direction to go, I was guided through that coma and how to come out the other side. And certainly, without my faith, I don't know what would have happened. But luckily, I did have that faith and put the trust in God and surrendered and said, "I can't fix everything myself. I need your help."
Yeah, that's beautiful. We're going to do a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk more with Jason Dennen about 8 days until sunrise. We are back with Jason Dennen talking about his book, 8 Days Till Sunrise, a true story of survival, rebirth, and discovering my purpose in life. Jason, would you mind, for me and the audience, taking a moment to read a part of the book where you mentioned that you felt that this actually was a gift, that it was a good thing that happened to you?
Sure. Okay. You could say skydiving almost killed me, but it also allowed me to be reborn and step off the treadmill. Take a deep breath and think about how I turned down the wrong path. The accident was a blessing. I got to see what I wasn't happy about in life before it was too late. I still had time to reevaluate life and try to get back on the path I wanted to be on. No matter how much I had neglected my relationships over the last few years, all my friends and family were there to support me and be with me when I needed them the most. My parents and siblings flew out in those early days to be with me. Friends started visiting once they knew I was out of the coma and it was okay to see me. The get well cards started pouring in from so many people, and sometimes from people I didn't know. The prayers continued to pour in as they had since the news of the accident spread. I was weary from all the regret of what I had let my life devolve into and who I had become. While lying in bed in the darkness, I felt that this was the first time that I had been able to take a deep breath and relax in years. I thought how sad that was. Suddenly a weight was lifted off me. Life became simple again. Survival, getting better, rebuilding myself to who I wanted to be, and thanking all those people that stuck by my side was all I needed to worry about. Lying in bed and not being able to move may have seemed like torture. For someone as active as I was always used to my body. I always used my body to relieve my stress, whether it was running, hiking, biking, climbing, or jumping out of planes. The blessing of not being able to walk or move was that my normal coping mechanisms were taken away from me. I couldn't deal with my problems by running and getting that endorphin high or spending a day jumping out of a plane so I wouldn't have to face the unhappiness of my life had become. When you can't do anything other than lay in bed and not move every day for weeks at a time, it forces you to confront what makes you unhappy. I contemplated the ways that I had disappointed myself with where I had allowed my life to take me. I had to truly confront my problems without any break or distractions. I had to beat myself up mentally, make myself feel the pain and regret. Changes are never made when you are happy or content with your current situation. I needed to tear myself down and make myself raw and sore. I had to beat myself down mentally until I retreated to a fetal position and could take no more punishment. Only then could I reemerge and build myself back to the person I wanted to be, the person I needed to be, the person whose life was spared by God to come back and be someone he was glad he saved. the person that he brought back to serve him and glorify him. There you go.
Thank you for reading that. You said something that I think some people might challenge. You said that you had to beat yourself down mentally, basically stripping yourself from all things that you knew, your comfort zone and how you handle stress. And you said that it was sort of like this self-punishment, when you could take no more punishment, only then were you able to reemerge and build yourself back to the person you wanted to be, the person you needed to be, the person whose life was spared by God to come back and be someone he was glad he saved. Walk us through just that whole mindset where you felt that was needed, that you, and I'm thinking, spiritually, God talks about you can't pour old wine in new wineskin. And so you were on this journey of rebuilding, but first getting rid of the old foundation and pouring a new one. Walk us through that.
Yeah. So when I had to lay in bed for 3 months, it was the hardest thing I ever went through, but it was the best thing I ever went through, because, as I say, you really stripped away from everything else in life, and you're forced. I think in our lives, we're there's so many things out there that can distract us from what we really need to be thinking about. And I think that I was somewhat, I wouldn't call myself a victim, but I was in that circumstance, whether it was work or all these other things that were distracting me from really just sitting there quiet and thinking about my life, and use all these things like jumping out of an airplane or running as a masking agent to mask the things you really aren't happy with, but it'll get you through the day if you do those things, because it diverts your mind away from the things that you really want to be thinking of. And when you're laying in that bed, there are no distractions, because all I was doing there through the day, survive, and then the rest of the day you're laying there and going like, what do I do with this? What am I supposed to be doing here? And really, I was weary and burdened, and God gave me rest. Gave me physical rest, not mental rest. So I was like, the gift is laying here and rebuilding myself into a better version of myself that I wasn't before. Now it's a whole new challenge when you get out into the world and all these distractions come back in your life. But when I'm laying there, I wasn't thinking about all the great things that had happened in my life. I guess I because there were a lot of great things that happened over my life before this accident, but really I just went straight to, here are the things you're lacking, here are the things you need to be doing better, and just over and over replaying that in my mind of, how do I not slip back to where I was before this accident. And I had to rebuild the mindset of how I was going to deal with this and how I was going to make myself better. And it's kind of one step at a time. You don't all of a sudden change in a day. It's all these little changes over time that rebuilds that foundation. And because you don't solve a huge problem in a day. And at first I thought that was, in terms physically, that's what I was trying to do. And that's really not possible. But the same way you're rebuilding yourself physically is how you're rebuilding yourself mentally and spiritually at the same time. So it was just one day at a time. And it was hard, because you really truth that you don't want to hear, things that you are failed yourself at and you should have done a better job and you didn't. And I said, I have a second chance. There's lots of people that don't get a second chance, and I better do something like this. So it was just a day by day. Just for a while, it was just really thinking about all the things I wish I'd done better, and how do I fix those things, and how do I not do that going forward? Because so yeah, it was just a day by day thing, but it was rough to go to, and I hit some dark places before I was able to start building myself back up.
No, yeah, definitely. I would imagine so, going to that dark place of the soul. Now that you've written this book, you're sharing your story, and individuals, you put the contact information below how you can connect with Jason, as well as get copies of his book. Go to jasondennen.com, Facebook, Barnes & Noble. But Jason, what I want to ask is, how have you changed now that you've written the book and you're telling the story? What What type of feedback are you getting? How is it shaping you, knowing that this story is helping to empower other people, maybe see hope in the darkness and in the chaos in their own lives?
Yeah. Well, I would say that one of the big changes was before the accident, I was someone who really kept stress in and figured I need to handle this myself. I didn't share things unless people asked. Um, and the difference is, I said, you can't be like that anymore. You need to share your story. And one of the things I found out while I was in the hospital, and really kind of the light bulb turned on, was people from the hospital would always come in and ask me about the story. They said, "We can't believe you're alive. Tell us what happened." And I would tell the story, and at first it was kind of turned into a burden because it would make me relive the story over and over again, and it was hard. And then one night, I'm laying there by myself, and I say, I'm thinking about the story, and I realized that instead of thinking about how it made me feel, I started thinking about what the reaction was every time I told the story. And the reaction was I would be vulnerable with someone, and then they would start being vulnerable with me. Things they were going through with their kids or their family, or the fact that they're in this hospital all the time, and they put all this effort into patients, and some don't make it out alive, and it's a heavy burden. And I kind of thought, wow, I didn't realize the power of those words until I started speaking them. And I didn't realize what the power was until weeks later, after telling the story so many times. And I realized, if you're quiet and don't share the things that I learned from this situation and try to help someone else going through their most challenging time, it was a waste that I ever went through it, because I wasn't going to do anything positive with it. So I said, this is something you were looking for purpose in life, and God showing your purpose. You had to go through this, and now you can help someone else in a way you could have never helped them before, because you wouldn't have had enough intimate knowledge of how it is to go through the toughest time unless you went through it first. So that's when I really discovered really the power of words, and the power of being vulnerable, the power of sharing things. And I went from recovery was about me to recovery is about all the people I could help if I could first come back from this. It's like you can't expect people to listen to your advice unless you're first willing to take your own advice to come back from this difficult situation. So I said, first I need to help myself before I can help anyone else. And then I realized, that starting to speak or visiting people in the hospital, or seeing people in slings, or on crutches, and I would just go up and talk to them, which I would have never done before because I'm not an outgoing person. Normally, I'm a very introverted person. But I was like, no, this is part of it. You have to go out of your comfort zone and go and walk, because you never know what you can do helping someone. And sometimes it's not about talking to them; it's about just listening to what they want to
Exactly.
share with you, which is an amazing experience. And really, the book, I had no intention of writing a book, because people would say, you should write a book about this. I said, if it's about me, I'm not that interested in writing it something. I'm not looking to boost myself up. And then I spoke at a church, and when I was finished, someone came up to me and said, their friend had opioid addiction, and they liked what I said, and they thought that they could benefit from those words. And my first suggestion, I said, well, I'll go and visit them if you want. And they said, no, they won't let you even in your door. And they said, do you have anything written down that has this same message? And I didn't.
Mm,
And you kind of have this thought of how you think you're going to help people, but then you realize you have to listen. It's not about how you want to do things, it's about how people
exactly.
need to hear the message. So I said, if I had this written down, I could have helped that person, but because I didn't, I could only do so much. So I went home that day, and within 2 days, I said, you need to start writing this, because that's a sign that says, it's not that what you're doing is wrong, but maybe there's people you're missing out on that you could really help by having this written down. And that's an example that just happened after I spoke, that shows you, well, I'm missing out on the people I could help if I don't write this down. So within 2 days, I just sat down and started writing, and then it kind of just, it went from there. So, I mean, having a great purpose in life is when I was lacking purpose, lacking focus, I'm just lost. And then when you have this purpose of helping other people, it's you wake up in a different way every single morning. You're driven in a
Right.
different way. You'll push yourself harder than you could have possibly done before. It's like when you have a purpose beyond yourself, you have strength beyond your own strength. So yeah, it's been well, it's not over. It's keep going. I'm building and building and trying to help more people as I go, and learning new lessons for myself as I go, and
Yes.
how to help people in different ways. So it's an absolute blessing for sure.
Well, Jason, I can't believe we're almost out of time. There's much more that I wish I could unpackage with you, but I want to first say thank you for sharing yourself. Um, you're just a bright light, and for those who are listening that are going through whatever it is, it could be physical trauma, mental trauma, emotional trauma, and you're just in that dark space and you
Yeah.
can't see your way out. I encourage you to, number one, get with the community that's going to support you. Number two, if you're in a state of crisis, make sure you get with professionals who can help guide you and bring you to a safe space. And number three, surround yourself with good reading material that gives you hope, encouragement, and inspiration, because God loves us all. And I believe that the same gift of second chance that he gave to Jason, he has for each one of us. But sometimes we have to be willing to step out of the box, right, Jason?
Yeah. Sometimes going through a trial is the best thing that could possibly happen to you. You might not think that at the time, but in retrospect, you're just like, this is a tremendous, the greatest gift I've ever been given, and I don't know where I would be without it. So,
Yes. Well, thank you again, Jason. I wish you much success, continued success with your book, with the stages that you are going to present on, and just continue to share your story and build hope, because the world really needs it, and they need voices just like you.
thank you so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Just remember, in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Until next time, be well, everyone.
Power of the Pen with LaWanna Bradford, expanding the impact and influence of authors from around the world. If you want to change the world, pick up your pen and write, said Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Books are uniquely portable magic. Power of the Pen spotlights authors from around the world. Listen as authors share messages that educate, motivate, inspire, and entertain. Join us each Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern on e360tv.com.